Good evening, friends, esteemed colleagues, Alfred. Everybody's here.
I'm neither a friend nor an esteemed colleague.
So you fall into some bucket. No. Thank you guys for joining us here tonight. This is a bit of a special episode of something here from campus2canton.com. A little bit of an announcement, I guess. I'm going to kick this over to you here in a second, Alfred, since you are our captain of the official. But we're going to be launching a new portion of the website here at Campus to Canton, a recruiting section with a eye toward Devi, C2C, and CFF type leagues. Some of the rankings can really differ, as you really dive into some of these guys. We don't like a landing spot. This depth chart's looking thin, et cetera, et cetera. So we are going to be launching this portion of the site. Alfred, like I said, you're the guy that drives the official here with Matt, with David, every week. What can people expect to find there, both now when it's launching in the next couple of days, and then maybe even down the road?
Yeah, this is really exciting. Something's been brewing. We had the idea, feels like almost a year ago. I mean, I know we initially started a lot of stuff about the 2022 class, where, kind of after we did the freshman guide, I know that Matt and David were interested in really diving into recruits. I was interested in getting that out to the people. So we started the official. And as that started really getting momentum, and we were just, Matt and David do 90% of the work, and I'm just the mouthpiece, and I put together a show sheet for the official. But they're doing some deep, deep stuff, and we're just like, we have got to put this on the site. And you know what? They're doing so much. This is not like a one article situation. This is a whole department. This is a section of the site we're going to dedicate to. And so, yeah, we're going to be launching that next week on Monday, I believe. It's going to be a totally new section of the website for recruiting. Of course, we're going to have articles, but that's really not going to be the main thing. It's going to be rankings of these recruits for the upcoming freshman class. That will be rankings of all four of us here, and Matt Bruning and also Colin, I think, will have their own rankings. And what we've done is we've created a template where we're grading these players on various, criteria and skill sets, and putting those together for our final ranking, our average ranking amongst the 6 or 7 of us. We're also going to have a comp tool. So a tool that can say this upcoming freshman grades out, compares to DK Metcalf, for example, or something like that, just to give people an idea of what am I getting myself into when I'm looking at this freshman, because we're doing a lot of that work for you, watching all the tape, finding those grainy huddle videos and all that. And we're really excited. And then Matt and David, I'll let you chime in too. I know we've got kind of further things down the road. I think right away it's going to be rankings and the tool and some articles.
Yeah, we hope to have more stuff along the lines of the actual data front. So actual more statistics, more than you would just find on like Max Preps or, just seeing a random stat line on Twitter. We want to actually contextualize things and find out what really matters. And that's kind of been a long process so far, but we hope to have that out eventually as well.
Yeah, I think the advanced metrics is like the big project we really want to get out. And, Matt's doing an insane amount. I'm focused on QB charting right now. So, we don't know what we're going to learn from it, but we're definitely diving in it, and hopefully we learn something pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, we've tended to model a little bit of what we want to do is kind of like, as too much as we can, be a PFF style database for high school. There is nothing like that. Like you said, we go off Max Preps, incomplete numbers there. Sometimes guys aren't even submitting stuff to Max Preps, so you'll just have 0 stats altogether, and you have to DM a coach to get some stats on a player. And so, yeah, we're trying to actually get some of those advanced numbers, and sometimes you just have to watch the games and say, this many incomplete, this many turnover-worthy plays, things of that nature. And we're just on the tip of that, but we really want to get there. That's where we're trending. So, stick with us on the recruiting angle here at Campus to Canton, because we're doing stuff that nobody else is doing.
At the end of the day, I think our goal is to not only give you our thoughts, so people obviously ask us all the time, what do you think of X player, Y player? I'm sure you guys get DMs we message each other all the time. What do you think of this guy? But also give you guys some of the tools to create your own rankings as well. So I think,
Absolutely.
if we can achieve both of those goals, then I think we'll be pretty happy. This is just the start of that. And so tonight, to kick things off, we wanted to go through our initial thoughts here on the upcoming freshman class, the 2023 freshman class. You probably are familiar with some of the names, the Arch Mannings of the world, the Malachi Nelsons, the Zachariah Branches. But we're going to go surface level still, but a little bit deeper than that here. Just our initial kind of thoughts on all these guys, and Matt, David, Alfred, and then Matt Bruning here as well. Matt, we haven't heard from you here tonight. Got all the graphics and producing everything. You're on sick child duty. I mean, you're wearing a lot of hats here tonight, Matt.
I am. I'm just happy to be here. Just happy to be here. Learn from all you fine gentlemen. We'll have some very interesting players to talk about. I know some that I guarantee are not being talked about in certain circles. It's always fun for me to hear, yourself, Alfred, Matt, and David's guys that they're higher on that are not necessarily higher in the recruiting services. I feel like we nailed a lot of those guys in last year's class. So I'm really intrigued to see who those guys are this year that we possibly will be talking about during the college football season next year. Like, man, remember when we had these guys ranked here and they were down in the 20s on the recruiting services? So that's the part that gets me excited when we talk about these recruiting classes.
Yeah, so let's jump right in here, guys. And before we get into specific positions, I want to just kind of address you guys about this class as a whole. Matt, I think you've graded the most out of all of us so far. You have 193 players. Am I correct here? You didn't do one
so close
in
to
the last
that.
5 minutes since I asked.
Yeah, no, I didn't sneak in any yet, but I'm working on it.
All right. So, I mean, since you've watched so many of these guys, just tell everybody a little bit what you think the strength of this class is overall after watching all these guys, and just what we can kind of expect to look at maybe in drafts next year as we start thinking about those already.
Yeah, I think the wide receiver class is probably the best position in my opinion. I think quarterback, it's very top heavy with those three, which we'll talk about later. And running back is just not, especially compared to last year's class, we had these 3 or 4 really high-end talents. Pretty much, in my opinion, there's just one real top guy there in Cedric Baxter, committed to Texas. At wide receiver, you got amazing high-end talents with not Baxter, Zachariah Branch. Some people here like Noah Rogers. I don't. Makai Lemon, another great option. Jonte Cook, going to Texas. And there's just a ton of depth there. And I think we're going to continue to see that in the coming years as well. And then, running back, it's really the Baxter party. I think he's pretty much the consensus RB1 in the community. He's pretty set up there to be pretty good at Texas, barring what Jaden Blue does to stop him. There has been rumors he could decommit, though, recently. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we all probably are pretty much in step with that. David, I know initially we really, really liked this quarterback class, like a lot of them. And then as we kind of dug in more and more, I think you were the first one of us that was kind of like, I actually think like it's basically just a couple of guys and then, your general question marks at the position. Can you tell us a little more about this quarterback class? And then we'll just segue right in there into where we have some of these guys ranked right now.
I feel like that's usually how it goes when you start to dive into a class. You get super excited and you're like, oh man, this class is absolutely stocked with talent. And then you start to nitpick these guys to death and you're just like, I don't know. So for me and kind of as a collection, our raw grade on some of these quarterbacks, we definitely feel good about Arch Manning and Malachi Nelson as tier 1 guys that have a pretty clear path. You feel like a pretty clear path to a potential first round pick in the NFL draft. And awesome college producers. And then you got 6 guys in tier 2 where it's they have a good combination of talent and landing spot and you really feel good about their college production. And then maybe in tier 3 you got a hodgepodge of 20 guys where it's just you're not quite sure on the talent, you're not quite sure on the landing spot, it doesn't all really match up like you want it to. So that's how we're kind of viewing it at this point.
And we actually had the luxury as a group of seeing almost all these guys live at some point this year. We attended a lot of Elite 11s. I know, Matt, were you the only one of the 5 of us that did not attend one of them this year?
I believe so.
I'll be dragging you somewhere next year, buddy. We don't live that far away. I'll come pick you up. Well, we saw all these guys, and then David, you went to the finals, so like you saw pretty much all of them in one place. So I mean, I feel like if anyone's qualified here to talk about it, what was that experience like? Just real quick. I know we've talked a little bit about it on some other shows here, but I mean, just seeing them in person, so much more different than seeing them, on grainy huddle footage, or even some of the better stuff that we sometimes get.
Yeah, it's interesting experience. Like I think it's useful to kind of get an up close personal look at these guys and just kind of get an idea for their size and like the velocity on their passes and kind of their demeanor in general. But it can be a little bit tricky because you can kind of fall in love with guys that are just out there throwing against air. It's like, how much can you take away from it? I don't know. Like we have to go back to the film at the end of the day. So like that's the important thing. Like how do they actually play in games? But you can still pick up on stuff and get a gauge for the talent overall.
All right, so let's dive into our top 10 quarterbacks here. And this is kind of what we're going to cover on this one, our top 10 at each position. Sorry, tight end. We do not have 10 tight ends yet. It's Deuce Robinson and everybody else. There you go. You're welcome. So let's talk quarterbacks here, guys. So just real quick before we talk about this. So you'll see on the screen here right now, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, we have the 10 quarterbacks here. You can see, school that they're currently committed to. That's not set in stone. National Signing Day hasn't come here yet, so any of these guys could switch to a different spot. You've got their name, height, weight, all of those kind of measurables to the best that we have the ability to collect those right now. Then you're going to see that right column that says adjusted grade. So basically, without giving away exactly what we do, we have a template that everybody grades all of these. Each position has its own separate template that we grade all these guys on. We get a raw grade. You can see everybody's, for transparency's sake, you can see everybody's individual grade for all these guys broken out. If you want to, you can sort by different rankers on the site. Basically, then we pull an average together and then we weight it based on the importance of the position. So again, that's why we don't have 10 tight ends on here, because tight ends kind of get nuked in this ranking. Quarterbacks obviously get bumped the most, and then running back and wide receiver somewhere in the middle of those. So that adjusted grade there, it's out of technically the perfect prospect is a 1.000. I would imagine with our templates that we will never see that, but I don't want to say never. I highly doubt it. So let's hop in here. Those top 10 quarterbacks. And Matt, can you bring that up again just real quick? I'm sorry. I'll just read them off real quick for everybody. So top 10 here. Oh, go ahead. What were we saying?
I was just going to make a correction. I messed up. Dante Moore is not going to Notre Dame. For those of you who look at it, he is going to Oregon. That is
much to David's chagrin.
It was.
I thought he flipped. Oh no!
You should have seen how excited David got in the background there really quick. He's like, wait, what does Matt know? I apologize. That is on me.
So here's our top 10 guys, and we'll talk a little more about them here in a second. When Malachi Nelson headed to USC there, Lincoln Riley, he's our number 1. Arch Manning, Texas, number 2 there. Dante Moore, as Matt said, currently committed to Oregon, number 3. And then that's the cutoff David was talking about after that. You can see those scores drop a little bit. You got Jackson Arnold, Elite 11 champ, going to Oklahoma there at 4. Kenny Minchie, who's going to lead my Pitt Panthers to a national championship sometime over the next couple years, at 5. Sam Leavitt, Washington State there at 6. Avery Johnson, really athletic kid that Alfred I know loves a lot, Kansas State there. Then Chris Parson, currently committed to Mississippi State at 8. Pierce Clarkson headed to Louisville at 9, and Lincoln Kienholz, and that is actually a name I don't know, headed to Washington.
You don't know the best player in Idaho?
I thought that tight end that's going to Oregon was the best player in Idaho. No, is that? No?
He might be too. I don't know. Is it Kienholz or Idaho? I may have it wrong. He's Montana, Idaho, one of those.
I love that we can pull names out of the best.
He's South Dakota, yeah.
Okay. I knew it was one of those like Badlands areas.
So let's talk about Sam Leavitt first here, as a guy that I think might be the first name that maybe people aren't super familiar with. Alfred, can I kick it over to you on this one? Are you someone that's a big Leavitt guy? I know a lot of the official clan are in on Leavitt right now.
Yeah, no, I'll mention it, but definitely it's kind of David's guy to talk about a little bit.
Then
so David brought him up.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Sure. I'll
talk. Brought him
about
to all of our attention.
Yeah, I mean his film stood out right away. That's initially how I found him. He's got good feet. He's got a pretty good arm. His talent level is good, and he's not ranked very highly. And I think he's maybe highest on 3. I think they have him as like QB 20. What does it say? 25 there. And then Yeah, you see 247 has him at 48th. I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday with Brandon Huffman. He works for 24/7. He's the Northwest correspondent. He saw Levitt live, and he said for sure, like, it was him and Blair Angelou, I think it was, that were on the podcast, and they were discussing him, and they're like, he's absolutely underrated. He's definitely going to get a rankings bump pretty soon. So from a talent perspective, I think he's solid, but a lot of the selling point on him is it's the landing spot for sure. He's going to Washington State. The offensive coordinator there is Eric Morris. He's in the coaching tree of Mike Leach. It's an air raid system. I'm kind of viewing him as like a Will Rogers type. For fantasy, that's good for us, but he's that kind of talent, but he's more athletic, and he's playing in an easier conference, going to the Pac-12. Another guy I kind of thought about was a Cam Rising. So imagine Cam Rising in, an air raid system that, at least for me, that feels like it's pretty good from a fantasy perspective.
Matt Bruning, you like him as well, right? I think I've heard you talking about him a lot.
Yeah, 100% because of David. David mentioned him in the recruiting channel, and so a lot of us watch these games on Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and so I just happened to see Westland, which is where he plays now, on NFHS. I was like, well, I'll just watch a game, and David mentions like his rushing ability. I think in that game, I got him in like a 60-yard, 70-yard run. Like, he is really good running the ball as well. I think he shows really good touch passing down the field. And one of the things I think in the reason he's underrated that David mentioned, actually, it may not have been that podcast he was listening to, but it was definitely those two. He moved around a lot in his high school career because of COVID. His whole season got canceled COVID year. So he actually went to I believe a school in California to play, but didn't necessarily get to start right away, and then came back to Oregon to play at Westland. So he's had like a weird high school career because of COVID. And I think that's what's caused him to drop off the radar. At least that's what they talked about when they went out there and watched him play. But yeah, he's really good.
And that's kind of what you look for in some of these recruits that you're looking at, and you're saying, like, why aren't they higher, right? Like, kind of that reason for, whether it be an injury early in their career, maybe they missed the camp cycle, sophomore, junior year, or they moved around, or they're from a small town. I mean, those are the kind of things you look for when you're kind of determining if someone, you're seeing something that, and it might actually be there. Is that kind of what you do, Matt, Powell? Two Matts here, come on.
It's kind of, it's always tough figuring out every player's exact background, the trajectory that they took to get to where they are now. It always, you just have to find what you can and kind of piece it together and make the best of the information you have, really. So, especially for, a guy like Levitt, I'm really high on him as well. I don't think I'm the highest on him, but he's a top 10 quarterback for me, and I think he's going to be at least a CFF stud for everybody.
Now,
I will chime in here.
Oh, ahead,
I just want to chime in and a little counterpoint to Levitt. I agree. I like him a lot. I think we all fell in love with senior tape, the most recent out there, if I'm not mistaken. I went back the other day and was looking at his junior. Definitely less impressive. The motion's a little bit more kind of loopy, and the ball velocity doesn't look quite the same. But on his senior tape, so I think he's cleaned up some stuff. I don't know if he got some coaching or just got stronger. On that senior tape, he's got that like Zach Wilson just bombs away mentality. And I agree. He's very exciting. I'm always a little bit, I try to judge most kids off junior tape, and then senior tape is like, did they get a little bit better? If there's a huge change between the two, it makes me just a little bit more kind of nervous about what was happening just before senior year. Like Devin Brown's another one where, he was kind of like nowhere and then went crazy senior year, and we all fell in love with him, put him as like quarterback 3. So that's the only thing. But yeah, Levitt's more recent stuff is pretty fantastic. Yeah, he's really got those like deep bucket shots, cross field, 40 yards down, just dropping it to a streaking receiver. So he's got some big time throws on that tape, and that's really impressive. And he's athletic, like everyone said.
Yeah, I mean, just to mention like his senior film, because I know David's watched a lot of his games live, so have I. Like, the big thing with him and why I think at least I have ranked him. I just looked, Matt, you actually do have him graded higher, just slightly over me and David, if I'm looking at that right. So you do have him graded the highest. I think the reason I like it as much of him going to Washington State, like David mentioned, is I actually think you can almost talk about the way Cameron Ward makes plays and that he does the same thing. Now, granted, it's a high school level, so we need to see him do it on the college side, but he is a guy who will run around and find time to create a play. He doesn't always throw the ball down the field. There's a couple plays. If you go back and watch the Friday Night Lights or search my Twitter, like I've posted of him running around. It feels like he's running around for 50 yards behind the line of scrimmage before he just fires like a bomb for a touchdown. Like he's got that playmaking ability that I think will work really well in the Pac-12 and at Washington State.
And I think you'll note, hearing everybody talk here, that we do factor in these grades, there is an actual numerical value given to landing spot, both, roster, coaching staff's penchant for developing talent and perceived depth chart in front of them. I know those things can change with the portal, but we are factoring some of that in. So interesting notes there from all those guys. One name that you didn't probably hear us mention at all would have been Austin Novosad here. Matt, I know you've been on Novosad like nonstop since you saw him in Elite 11. So you did what David said not to do, and you fell in love with this kid. And now we're trying to smack some sense into you. But you still believe in Novosad, even though maybe the collective is a little lower on him now.
Yeah, I mean, he was actually one of I have him on here as my sleeper because he's not on here, as you can see on the screen. So David and Matt, Alfred, I believe, mentioned they've got this great athletic comp tool that's coming out with the recruiting side as well. So I tried to pull some of the most intriguing comps for these players, and he got a Hendon Hooker. Now, it is only at 74%, which is not great. But I do think he's got all the tools, and he was actually in our top 10 until one of us adjusted their grade on him and gave him like a 50, which makes no sense to me, but that part is not what we're discussing tonight. But he's got all the talent in the world. Like, he's got a very strong arm. Like I'll put it this way. When you post a clip online, and even Felix agrees with me because he vehemently does everything he can to disagree with me, hence all the Quinn Ewers stuff that's happened over the past year. When I can post one clip of him throwing a ball and Felix can say that dude's got an arm, he's got, I think, one of the best arms in this class. We're still working through, or I shouldn't say I'm not. Matt and David are working through some QB like throwing stuff, and I know it's not perfected yet, but if you go in there and look at that bears out in their metrics there as well. I believe he had the second highest out of everybody they had in there graded. Like, he has a very strong arm. I think he's got incredible mechanics as well. Now, I will say he has not looked great this year. Some of that I do think is the jump from 5A to 6A. Which they are playing much tougher competition, but he's still been passing for over 200 yards and multiple touchdowns every single game. The only game he looked bad in was against Westlake, which is like a nationally ranked team. They were, I think, number 6 or 7 when they played him. And even then, he played well up until the end of the game when he literally, on like 4 or 5 consecutive drives, threw a couple interceptions and then had a fumble, which ended up costing Dripping Springs the game. But overall, I still think we're going to, or at least I will, I'm not going to move him too far down because I actually think the landing spot at Baylor is a great place for him as well with his arm and the wide receivers they have on the outside that can get deep. I think he's going to be really good for the college game.
Before we get, I think we have one more quarterback sleeper that someone wants to talk about here. I do just want to ask, we have this cutoff kind of here noticeably in our rankings between 3 and 4, Nelson, Manning, Moore kind of in a tier of their own. Jackson Arnold, though, I mean, he is the Elite 11 champ. He's going to a big program with an offensive coordinator that has a history of success there. So why aren't we higher on Jackson Arnold? Can a Jackson Arnold hater please stand up and tell me, Big Wide? I know, Matt, you're not the guy to go to here because I think you have him the highest of all of us.
I think I do, yeah.
David, Alfred, either of you guys want to
I'm not a hater. I'm trying to find my actual number grades.
I can jump in while Alfred's looking for his. I don't think the arm strength is quite as there as I thought it was earlier this year. And he's got some balls. It's like I've talked about him on almost every Friday Night Lights. Texas, as Matt and David can tell you, have like professional camera work at almost all of their high school games. So it's much easier to watch those streams and kind of see that. And David, I know, has posted a ton. Like, he's almost always watching Denton Geyer games. You go at Solving Football and search Arnold, you'll find a ton of clips that he's posted. There's a lot of times that ball is just kind of hung up in the air, and I don't think it's getting down the field the way we thought it was, the way it looked like at the Elite 11, some of the stuff that David posted. I love the rushing upside. He's got a ton of those highlights, but I don't know that the arm is necessarily where I thought it was going to be, which is kind of what had him up above some of the other guys. He actually dropped recently which we're all fairly close on him. There's nobody that really stands out except, well, big wide receiver guy does have him a little bit higher, but all of us are pretty close. I just think that part is what dropped him for me a little bit.
Yeah,
I think I
there.
agree with that.
Yeah.
In the ball speed test that Matt was talking about, he did score pretty low. I went on my way to find a lot of throws on him because it was alarmingly low. So maybe I am a little too high on him still. I do really love the rushing upside, obviously. Another thing, I think he has had a few games this season where he really did struggle. I think he got shut down at least 2 or 3 games this year, and that's definitely something to worry about as well, even though he is going against very high-level Texas competition.
I know Matt and David and Alfred, I mean, you guys talk about this on the official at times. You guys factor in, strength of schedule, and I felt like he might be a guy that would pop a little bit in that metric. But David, I guess I'll come to you since you're the one who hasn't talked on him yet. Is that the other stuff just weighs too heavily for that kind of outside type metric to bring him up?
I think it's just like he's gonna check all the statistical thresholds you want to see, I think, from an efficiency standpoint. And I'm just looking at his strength of schedule right now. It's 45.4, which is it's very good. Obviously, he's playing 6A Texas football. I think he's gonna come in pretty ready because of that.
I think we lost David there.
He does have some.
There he is.
He does have some sneaky good wide receivers. Maybe that kind of is stat padding for him a little bit, but I think when you watch him, you just don't. At least for me, I don't see like a huge ceiling with him, like from an NFL standpoint. Like maybe like a day 2 guy, but like for me, he kind of like trends to be like a potential like NFL backup. That's just kind of how I view him.
I mean, I think the arm strength is a bit of an issue. He is very exciting and dynamic. He's very high for me. I mean, he is that tier 4 or tier 2 fourth QB for me as well. But I would concur with most of what everyone's. His placement's pretty good, though. I do think he kind of can get it in a nice spot for his receivers to make plays. And so that is encouraging because sometimes guys do get away with a little less arm talent if their timing and anticipation and placement is really good. So he could surprise there a little bit. But yeah, he's not going to be, multiple arm slots slinging it, across hash to, the perfect little dime spot on the other side or something like that, like a Mahomes or an Allen or a Herbert.
So Jackson Arnold is Joe Burrow confirmed. I think
actually it might not be a terrible high end
mobile
comp there.
One other note real quick, Matt, and then I just want to come back to you on this last sleeper that we have on here. I if you're tuned in at all to recruiting and you kind of know what the quarterback class looks like on some of the services, you'll notice that we have not mentioned the names Nico. It's been a while since I've done this on the show.
Alava.
Yeah.
Nico is not on this list. It was not mentioned yet, and neither is Christopher Vizina. We have both those guys graded fairly lowly in the class. They are at this point the 64th overall players in the class and the 69th overall player in the class. So they are 5 stars that I think are riskier. Although I think with Nico, he at least goes to an elite offense with a depth chart that's fairly bare and an opportunity to do some things fairly early in his career. So I think that could be from a value perspective, maybe a saving grace for him that maybe Vizina does. I mean, we're all out on Vizina, right? Like you couldn't convince me to touch Vizina in a draft next year to save my life. Quite frankly.
I think we should know David and I are actually David especially, are kind of going up on Nico a little bit just because he's landing in such a great spot. And that starting job is, they should be handing it over to him just on that. He got $80 million. It's going to be hard to not give him that job, I think.
Yeah, I raised him a little
no matter
bit
how
in my
bad we think he
rankings
is.
just because of that too.
Yeah,
like
if
he
he was literally
up high, but he moved up.
Yeah, if he was literally going anywhere else, I would have him in tier 3. But I pushed him into tier 2 because it's Tennessee. The landing spot's like literally perfect in my mind.
I think Nico is a really interesting case study, and we'll see how it plays out. Because what David was saying, seeing these guys in person, you're literally 2 feet away from them, just walking around on the field at Elite 11. And you really get a sense for kind of How are they interacting with other players? How are they competing, even if they're not like, oh, trying to win a game, but like you get a real sense for like just like vibes, And a quarterback, I think, is one position where vibes matter. Like you got to lead your team. You've got to get buy-in from all your players, all these sorts of things that the best of the best, we can all agree, have. It's very hard to quantify, but the best guys have this leadership. Nico doesn't have it to me at all. Like he does not have that. He can flash the greatest arm talent, where it's just like a flick, and it is that exactly what I was talking about before, where it's like, cross the field to a pinpoint spot and a receiver going to the sideline, boom, right there. He can do that. He does not seem to have that fire, that drive. And I'm only saying this because like I saw him up close and personal, and then has been some other weird kind of like journalistic stories we've heard about him. So it'll be an interesting case study. That's one reason why I'm not bumping him up that much, because like even if he's at Tennessee, can he honestly, like I have some questions, like can he get on the field? Is he going to be like a Harrison Bailey where he just doesn't cut it, never gets really that hold of the team, of the offense, and transfers somewhere else, and we just like wonder what the heck happened? I mean, that honestly wouldn't shock me. I think the talent is there, but with quarterback especially, you've got to have more than just the arm talent. And so it'll be an interesting case study. And I could be totally wrong. I mean, I hope I am. I want him to be great because I don't want to really root against anybody, but that's my perception.
I almost wonder if other players feel that way too, because he hasn't really been able to recruit anybody along with him to Tennessee.
It's an interesting point.
So just like Arch, the day he committed, everybody.
Yeah, Baxter,
made their way
he's
over.
got 2 or 3 stud receivers. Same with USC.
Yeah.
And Malachi.
Just a point there. You have to back that up. And then Matt, one last sleeper here. I actually really like this kid as well.
Yeah, before I get to him, I just want to mention, because you mentioned Vizina, a lot of that I think comes from, and I know David can talk about this because he's watched a couple of his games, he just plays really bad competition, and he has not been good at all. And I think going into Clemson, we know he's going to have to sit behind Cade for likely 2 years, I think is another reason why, at least I am kind of out on him. I still have him graded fairly well because I think he is a good passer, and he doesn't have a ton of help around him, but they don't play great competition. He's looked horrible in every game that I've watched.
I mean, he got blanked by Mountain Brook High School, which I have friends that live in Mountain Brook in Birmingham, and it is not, you can't get blanked by Mountain Brook.
Yeah, I've charted 167 dropbacks for him so far this season, and like, yeah, I don't know, his charting does not look strong right now. Like he has more turnover replays and big time throws. Like when he's only under pressure though, like his offensive line is like doing a pretty good job. Like granted, he does get rid of it relatively quick, but like he's only been pressured on 12.6% of his dropbacks, and like that's not going to happen in college for sure. I'm pretty sure like the average pressure rate in college is like closer to like 30%, and like he's just not on target at all on those throws. And then even when he has a clean pocket, he's not that good either. So his receivers are bad. I'm not gonna lie. Like his receivers do stink. So like that could be part of the reason why. And I know why these services like him. I mean, he's 6'4", 210, whatever. Like he looks like the prototypical quarterback with a good arm. When he does have a clean pocket, it's solid. Like he has a good throwing motion and stuff. Like I understand why people like him. He looks really good in camps. But I don't know. Like all the film I've watched, I'm just not seeing it right now. And not to mention like he's gonna have to wait 2 years for sure, right? Like when's he gonna see the field?
And I mean, then they've got a 5-star in 2024 that's hot. They're hot on DJ Lagway, so like he could get just totally usurped by a freshman if they get some 5-star studs. So I mean, it's questionable depth chart there too for sure.
Think about the schools that have produced a lot of, and coaches that have produced a lot of quarterback talent lately. Lincoln Riley at USC, no Vizina offer. Steve Sarkisian at Texas, no Vizina offer. Alabama, he's in their backyard, no Vizina offer. He did get one from Ohio State, and he got one from Clemson. But
that's a big deal, actually.
Those kinds of things are interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Matt, coming back over to you.
Yep.
Last guy here on the quarterback.
So Aiden Childs, he is committed to Oregon State, 3-star, and if you guys are watching this on YouTube, you can see. I mean, he moved up. He was not 17 or 13 for 24/7 or Sports on 3 till recently, where he played a very good game against Warren High School and Nico, actually. But it's really his legs, and I love the landing spot here for him. If you guys watch any Oregon State, you stay up late and watch Chance Nolan. He's got a little bit of rushing upside as well. Aiden Childs, I think, blows that out of the water. He's extremely dynamic with his legs. I do think he's a little quick to move out of the pocket at times, but when he does stay behind the line of scrimmage and decide not to run, he can make out of off structure throws, can pass from multiple different arm angles. I actually think he's got pretty good touch on some of his deep passes as well. He's very improved as a passer, and he's actually had a really good completion percentage every single year in high school, which was kind of surprising to me. However, he is playing, I believe it is, let me pull it up here. I just had his strength of schedule is 16.9, which is technically 87th in California. So it's not great. Some of the
we got guys with negative.
Oh, I know.
That's not that bad.
I've got a lot of those on there, but I just think, over 500 yards rushing so far this season, and he's still got games to go. Like, his incredible with his legs. And I think there's a shot that he could start next year for Oregon State because they don't have anybody there. Chance Nolan, not that good. Ben Gulbranson, not that good. Well, I think he could improve a little bit as a passer. He's a guy I think like really nobody's talking about that kind of jumped up here recently in the services. I think could be a more of a fantasy guy for us on the CFF side than really an NFL guy moving forward.
All right, let's pivot to running backs here. A couple of us have mentioned at this point, it's Cedric Baxter and then everybody else. And nobody else particularly close here. For those again, watching on YouTube or listening, just our top 10 real quick. Cedric Baxter, top. He's committed to Texas right now, but as we've also alluded to a couple times here, there are rumors that maybe he's looking elsewhere. Justice Haynes, number 2, headed to Bama. Ruben Owens, number 3, headed to Louisville. Isaiah Augustave heading to Arkansas. He's number 4 for us. Cameron Selden, technically listed as an athlete, but it sounds like he might be a running back. He's our RB5. Roderick Robinson recently flipped from Cal to Georgia here. He's number 6. Caden Fegan headed to Illinois. Big boy back there. That's how they like him. Number 7. Richard Young, number 8, headed to Bama. Dontavius Braswell, number 9, headed to South Carolina. And Jeremiah Cobb headed to Auburn. So why is Baxter the obvious elite only top running back in this class? Matt, I'll come over to you first, since I think you kind of mentioned it earlier. Just what about him puts him in that range for you?
Yeah, so the starting point for me there is obviously his size-adjusted athleticism. He is extremely fast. We've timed him at over 21 miles per hour. He's listed at like 215, I believe. It's right on screen, 215. And not just that though. He is a very good runner in general. I think he has really good footwork around the line, good vision. He really maneuvers well going up to the second level, getting around backers, making a few nice sharp cuts here and there. And he's very, very physical in the open field. And once he, gets through that second level, he's pretty much gone every time.
If you guys had to pick another back that was closest to him, I think we all differ on this a little bit. David, I'll come to you first. Who is the next guy for you?
My second guy currently is Ruben Owens, and I'm thinking about like the situation at like Louisville and how much they love to run the ball and stuff like that. But from a talent perspective, he can catch passes. He's explosive. He's a really good athlete. That's definitely something I value in a running back, and pretty good size as well. He kind of checks all the boxes. I know you kind of pointed out like he's not the greatest decelerator, and I can see that too. So he's actually significantly lower than me for Baxter. So it's like I like him, don't love him, but I also love the CFF potential for him.
Alfred, who's your second guy right now, or your first guy? Are you the one who doesn't have Baxter first, or?
Yeah. I need to adjust Baxter because, like, when I think about him, I do think about him as the running back number one, going to Texas, that offense. And he's 220. I mean, the math is simple here. He's 220 pounds, I think, and he can hit 22 miles per hour. So my knocks on him are a little change of direction-y, a little side to side agility. I really value that. Do I value it too much? Maybe. I don't see a lot of that in his game, but like he's big and he's really fast, and that's going to be really good at Texas. My second guy, well, my first guy right now is Justice Haynes, who Matt I know thinks is kind of meh all around. I think he's like really good all around, but I agree there's no like wow, hang your hat on this criteria or this characteristic that you're like he's elite here, but he's just very good going to Alabama. I think he's better than Richard Young, more all-rounded than Richard Young. And then I've got a Marion Peterson as my number 2 right now, which I need to get on his senior tape because he was a junior. His junior tape to me is phenomenal. Receiver, he's electric. He's fast, straight line. He's got juke, make you miss ability as well, and he's lined up as a receiver multiple times. But he's listed. I think we had him at like 185, 190 as a junior, and now he's listed as like 210 or even 220 on 3, and so they're usually the most accurate. And then what I was told by my colleagues here is that his senior tape doesn't look quite as explosive. So he may have added 10
Kamaro
to 15
Edmonds.
pounds.
Kamaro Edmonds all over again. No.
Yeah, so maybe he added all this weight, and I'm thinking his junior tape plus 20 pounds is like elite. But if he's looking sluggish, that could be a problem. So I need to go kind of reevaluate that. But from his junior tape, you know, I thought he was roughly 205, 200, 205 potential. And I thought he was very, very good, very dynamic, versatile athlete there, and going to an elite offense as well. So that all made that very appealing to me.
Mr. Bruning, who's your number 2 right now? Are you a Haynes guy as well?
I do have Haynes up there. I like him. I don't disagree with some of the things that have been said about him. Like he doesn't have that. I try not to use the word elite anymore after you and Felix just like beat me up about it. But I don't think he's got like this massive standout trait like Cedric Baxter does. But I do think he's just good all around. I think going to Alabama matters a little bit too. Now, I know that means he may not see the field year 1, maybe not even that much year 2. But he's a good receiver. I do think he's really good behind the line of scrimmage as well. I just think he's a very good overall rusher. And if we're looking at this and I know we try to mostly look at this from like a CFF and then who's going to give you fantasy points, but going to Alabama and being good at everything likely gets you NFL drafted as well. And that's kind of where I view Haynes. And I just think he's been very good for Buford. I've watched a lot of his games. They've had some of them nationally televised. So he is a guy that I still really like. He's my only other running back in tier 1. He's still a couple points away from Baxter. And he may drop a little bit after some of the senior stuff I've watched, but he'll probably stay in tier 1 for me.
I'll also piggyback on that. Going to Buford this year, a major like state championship caliber, like perennial state championship caliber program in Georgia, from a private school where he had like 2,500 total yards last year. Going to Buford now, upping in class, and now he's just like averaging over 10 yards a carry. Like he's smoking it at the best. You know, probably against some of the best competition in a very good state for football, Georgia, especially when you're talking about like on the lines and stuff like that. Like Georgia just has elite defensive linemen and things like that just all across the state. So, you know, he's doing pretty impressive stuff against some really good competition. I would say outside the state of Texas, Florida, or Georgia might have some of the best talent in the country.
I know we've talked a lot about this class not having a lot of backs that are, 200 plus pounds already, which is kind of what we like to see. We just, eliminate some of the guesswork around weight. But we do have a couple names here, and Roderick Robinson is one I want to talk about. He, like I said, recently flipped. He was committed to UCLA. We loved that. Has since switched to Georgia. You can see the athletic comp there is Arian Foster. That's actually interesting. It's not what I would have thought of when I watched him, but he's listed at 230 pounds. I don't know that he's actually that heavy. And he might, probably doesn't want to gain any more than what he's at now. But David, I want to come to you on this one because you were the one that talked a lot about him. He was catching passes at Elite 11, so he's not just like this, me thump up middle, kind of guy. Like he can do a little bit of everything. Like what realistically can we expect from Robinson, albeit maybe waiting a year or two at Georgia?
Yeah, he really grew on me. like you said, there's not a whole lot of big running backs in this class, and he definitely, just seeing him in person, this guy is extremely thick and powerful, but he is agile and he does have soft hands. Like he can catch I don't know how much, they'll ask him to do. You never really know. And Georgia's an interesting, we kind of wanted him to go to UCLA, honestly, we did. And he's going to Georgia with, a stocked running back room where it seems like, they're trying to get every running back like 7 or 8 carries every game, which is frustrating. But I think like he'll develop there, and I think he will be. I think he's like a player that I can see maybe kind of disappointing on the college side as a producer, but could still get like a day 2 draft capital type player because he's whether he's big, he's agile, and he still hits 20.5 miles per hour, which for a guy that's like 230 plus, I mean that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I know we all wanted him to go to UCLA just because of how Chip Kelly uses that, but I don't. Georgia, I think you could argue is RBU, which is why it hasn't really affected my ranking of him. And I wonder if maybe he ends up being a Nick Chubb or Sony Michel type at Georgia, and the fact that I'm not making the comp of like the running style. I'm talking about the fact that Georgia still use both those guys a ton. And we haven't quite seen that since then. They've kind of pivoted to like 3-4-man backfields. I wonder once Robinson gets the chance to actually tote the ball, if they just use him more than everybody else. I don't know that he ends up being a Kendall Milton who's getting like 35% of the carries, and they put Dejon Edwards in there and mix in multiple other backs, Kenny McIntosh. Like I wonder if once Robinson gets the hold of that backfield because of his side, because of his speed, because of his hands, that he is almost in like a 50-50 split with somebody else.
Yeah, Matt. I mean, my philosophy is that running back by committee is more of a result of your personnel than a philosophy that you hold to. Like if you have a guy who can do it all every single down, I think that coaches like that because you won't want to run a guy into the ground, but then you can't tell what you're doing any given play. If one guy can do everything, so maybe the guys in Georgia backfield right now just aren't as good as we thought they were. Like Milton has not become who he could have been, and these other guys were always ancillary parts. Dejon Edwards and McIntosh. So maybe they just don't have that guy, and that's why they're doing this horrible split. I mean, I was looking at the game going into this weekend. I'm like, they have the best like yards per carry in the country, and they have nobody more than 350 yards. Like it's just a gross. I mean, for any kind of production metric, it's gross. Sorry, Matt. You go ahead with your counterpoint.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the Nick Chubb example alone. Unless you're Nick Chubb or Todd Gurley, you're not starting freshman year or getting any touches at Georgia freshman year. Well, not any, but I mean, obviously Branson's getting some touches. But you have Branson, you have Andrew Paul, you have McIntosh could be back, who knows? I just the room is too crowded, and we keep saying, oh, he might have to wait a year or two. How many people have to wait a year or two? Like these year or twos are piling up. Like, is Andrew Paul going to ride the bench and Roderick's just going to jump over him? It's just too much projection for me. I'm not going to wait around a year or two for a guy that I think probably is going to end up day 3. I don't think he's a day 2 kind of talent personally. I was mostly on him for the CFF upside. That's pretty much dead for me now. He's never going to be, this 1,000-yard lead back there. I just don't see it happening.
Wow, that really kind of killed the room here, Matt. Thanks
So
for that. Well, okay.
I had to do my Austin impression. Kill the stocks on him.
Touche.
I will say he's having an obscene senior season right now, yeah. Robinson, averaging 13 yards per carry, which is like, that's a lot. I mean, and when you're talking about you think he's a bruiser because he's 235 pounds, that's pretty insane. I mean, yards per carry, we know that is a junk stat for most of the time. But for some of these guys, you definitely don't want to go low. Like you don't want a guy who's averaging 6 yards per carry in high school but like 13's insane, actually. So he's having quite a senior season.
Yeah, and I don't think that he'll get on the field as a freshman. I wasn't trying to make that like comparison with the Nick Chubb thing. I just think I could see him in year 2, Branson's final year, being the guy. I liked Andrew Paul. I was definitely not as high on him as a lot of the other people were here. I would not be surprised if Paul's not long for Georgia. I think the injury there, and I think with Robinson coming in and possibly having a chance to jump him, especially if he early enrolls, like I wouldn't be surprised if Paul's on his way out. Like that's just my opinion.
But everything we heard before the season started, Paul was the guy over Branson.
That's
I think
true.
injuries make it really hard to stick, though.
Injuries, and again, you just mentioned it's a loaded room. Like there may just come a point where he's not. I mean, Kendall Milton was that guy too his freshman season. He was a guy that
I mean, that's not just me. I'm not drafting any three of them.
Yeah, like it's just one of those things where
you don't have to convince me.
Where I think him going there is, I personally won't knock him too much for that. Like I can't, if you do, like there's nothing wrong with that. I can't say that's bad process, whatever. I get it. Like I do get knocking him. Like I said, we all wanted him to go to UCLA because I think we all thought he could probably start year one. Like as soon as he gets in there, starter for UCLA, tearing it up for you on the CFF side. But I personally don't think Georgia's that bad.
How about this then? You guys don't like the back I tossed out. Okay, we got another back that's got nice size here. He's a good athlete, Cameron Seldon. He's going to Tennessee. We're making an assumption that he's going to play running back based on what we're hearing, based on just what he does in high school at this point. He could be a receiver, he could be a running back, probably a running back. Matt, this guy, I mean, athletic comp Herschel Walker's there. That's not really ever a bad thing. And look at him in those nice Tennessee uniforms. Look at that. Wow. Yeah.
I live in Georgia, so sometimes that's a bad thing.
We're athletically comping him.
Okay.
Nothing else here, folks. Nothing else. Stay on target. Stay on chat here. Matt, take it away. You like him. You like Seldon a lot, right? I mean,
yeah, I like him a good bit. I mean, his assessment is really just a total projection on what he can be. We haven't seen much of what he is currently, other than a dozen or so plays of him just breaking free and running past everybody else. But he's 6'2", 220 pounds. Clocked over 22 miles per hour several times. He claims to run a 4.2. We're talking, super, super rare, high-end athlete. And I think going to an offense like Tennessee, where they're going to find a way to use him, no matter how raw he is, I think they have to get him on his field his freshman year. And if they doesn't, he could still end up being a productive player his sophomore year if he gets more refined. I doubt he's year 1-0 if he ends up a wide receiver, just because they're going to be able to scheme him ways to get the ball.
Is there some rocket Sanders to this situation? Athlete, wide receiver / running back, going to a room, maybe a little bit crowded, but maybe ends up as running back, and kind of the rest is history. I mean, is that a foreseeable kind of development path for him here?
That's a pretty good parallel that I didn't really think of. But yeah, I mean, they're both pretty close to the same size, both freak athletes. I mean, Seldon's obviously a bit higher level of a freak there. Not that anything wrong with Raheem. He's very athletic himself. Yeah, I mean, I think, and just watching his film, you can just see his best spot is at running back. He's a little long, but he's just such a powerful runner, and that size, it just suits him better to play running back.
David, you're the lowest. Why are we hating? Yeah, everyone is still very high on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think my scores in general on the whole are kind of low. So I don't know. I have him as running back 8. I don't know if that's much different than you guys, but I just want to see more. I haven't had a chance to see a lot of his film, especially if I think he's going to be a running back. I just haven't seen enough running back film, and it's like, does it even matter? This guy's an absolute freak. Like, I put him in tier 2 on athleticism alone. And if I get some good film and I feel a little more confident about him, I mean, he can move up to freaking running back 2, I guess. I mean, because it's not like I'm super high on Reuben Owens. So, like, I have a big drop off after Baxter. So, like, we'll see if he comes out with some more tape.
His burst is immediately noticeable. And then you think about how he's 220 pounds, and it's like, wow. I mean, he is absolute, give me 3-1 odds and say that he will be the best running back in this entire class, and I'd probably take a 3-1. Like, suffice to say, it wouldn't shock me. I think it'd be worth, betting on if you got a little bit of juiced odds that, because he's got those tools, and if it clicks, he could be just absolutely incredible.
One final back here that it doesn't quite have that size yet, but he's at least 190 here, and Arkansas has really recruited these intriguing athletes over the past couple of years, we've seen, the Raheem Sanders, Treylon Burks, even some guys that maybe necessarily haven't worked out there. What was it?
AJ Green.
AJ Green. Like they've had some interesting guys there. But Isaiah August, is it Augustave? Is that how you say his last name?
I think it's Augustave.
Augustave. Okay. We'll have to have him on a show sometime so he can teach me. We like him a lot compared to where he is generally in this class. You can look and see on the graphic here from Florida. We have him fourth back in the class overall. 24/7 has him pretty high, but then on 3 ESPN they're a little bit lower on him. Athletic Comp Jade on Blue. That's an interesting one. He's a fun player going to Arkansas. I mean, I don't know that we need to know how much deeper do we need to dive on it than that. Alfred, do you have strong thoughts on him, or Matt or David? Any of you guys?
I'll just reflect what you say. He's just such a fun player. He's got that pretty unique build currently. It's kind of hard for the comp machine to find one for him at 6'1", 190, and he looks every bit of it. Super long, kind of high waisted guy, but he's just such a blazing fast accelerator. Very physical, kind of an upright runner at the moment, which is something I'd like to, see him improve a bit on. But outside of that, you'd like to see him add a little weight and get a more better receiving track record under him. But he's an upside bet, and I think he's my RB5 right now. So I'm pretty much all in on him at the moment.
Yeah, really, really, really good player there. Let's pivot to some wide receivers because we talk, you guys said this is the best part of this class. So let's put our money where our mouth is here. Talk a little bit about some of these guys. So our top 10 here for the class, looking at these guys here, you're going to notice a lot of guys going to the same school, which is pretty much how it is every year. Zachariah Branch right now is our number 1. He's headed to USC, a Tyreek Hill-esque kind of player. Number 2 is Jonte Cook. He's currently committed to Texas. Number 3, Mekhi Lemon, committed to USC, and he plays with Malachi Nelson right now. So you've got, the shower narrative already going on with those guys. Jurion Dickey, number 4, headed to Oregon. Jaden Greathouse out of Texas there. He's headed to Notre Dame as of now. Brandon Innes going to Ohio State. Noah Rogers going to Ohio State. Keon Brown. There's a name that's a little deeper that maybe you aren't familiar with. Currently committed to Oklahoma. Malik Benson, actually a JUCO kid, but we thought that he should go in with his crop since he'll be in, supplemental drafts this year. He's headed to Alabama. And then last but not least, DeAndre Moore Jr., currently headed to Louisville. Matt, since you are the Zachariah Branch number 1 fan, I'm pretty sure you have the URL for his fan club webpage. You've got t-shirts. All sorts of good stuff. So what makes him number 1 in this class for you?
Yeah, I mean, you turn on the tape and you immediately see you're dealing with such an explosive athlete. Obviously very small. Well, not very. 5'10", 172. I think his official measurement is actually 5'9" currently. But I'm not overly concerned about it. He's going to be majority slot guy, next level and in the NFL when he finally gets there. And he's really a very refined receiver to go on top of it. He has great hands. He's pulled off several contested catches, one-handed catches. He wins at all levels of the field. There's not really a lot of concerns with his game. You know what he's going to do. I think he's just going to go line up in the slot from Lincoln Riley and put up 1,000-yard seasons. So
we're all very high on him, and just on average grade, he is the highest player. Again, like we said earlier, we weighted them a little bit, so quarterback's obviously worth a little bit more. That bumped at least one name above him, I believe, in the adjusted grade overall, maybe 2. But just on raw grade alone, he is our number 1. So all of us really, really like him. Alfred, you actually have him graded the highest. And you might have the highest grade on him that like anybody has on an individual player.
On any player in the last 2 years, maybe. I was just pulling it up here, and we grade most of our categories out of 5. And I don't give 5. I mean, we try to be pretty conservative, and we're not just trying to say everyone's awesome. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5s. Like that. That's a lot of 5s. And I mean, most guys, if they have 1 5 in any category, that's like pretty good. He's just, I've got flexibility, footwork, first step, burst, acceleration, body control, return ability. Like, Matt, when he first brought him up to me, he dropped in the chat like, this guy's basically Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. And, I'm like, oh, okay, well, we'll see. And he just did. I mean, he's got that acceleration, deceleration, body control that's just, it's like they're operating at such a high level, but they can like make adjustments so quickly. And that's the thing with Tyreek Hill, you can tell in the NFL and Jalen Waddle, like they're in perfect control of their movements, even though they're operating at like the fastest guy in the field. But they're never like, they're always one step away from like altering direction or something. It's remarkable. He's got it. He's got that twitch. And I agree with Matt in terms of your projection, like pretty quickly. He's going to take over at USC.
So we should expect him to play for the Dolphins at some point. That's what you're saying.
I think so.
Well, he really is in that mold of like the kind of receiver the NFL is starting to go more towards. He can just get open on any route pretty much against any corner. So I really think that Waddle comp is pretty much
the thing with Branch is that like it's not even some guys were like, hey, if you dream on this and he hits his 99th percentile outcome, he could be this guy. Like we do that all the time, right? With Branch, it's like I see it now. I mean, I think he could play in the NFL next week. I think he could get open in the NFL next week. Like he has it. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
And one thing that neither one of those guys mentioned, he's an incredible special teams player as well. Like the amount of punts and kickoffs he's taken back. I think one of the first highlights David posted of him actually on Twitter was him taking like a punt back. You go look, he's an extremely good special teams player.
Which will immediately, I mean, he'll play like day one at least on punt returns or something.
Yeah, they don't really have, and to my knowledge, a guy like that there. So yeah, I could see him doing that. Mekhi Lemon heading there with him as well. And again, he's another guy that's listed as an athlete. He's going to play wide receiver there for them. He's currently catching passes from Malachi Nelson, so they'll be best buddies there. Athletic comp Jordan Addison, which is really intriguing because that's kind of the guy that he'll be replacing here once Addison moves on to the NFL. David, I actually want to come to you first on Lemon because you are like by the lowest on him by a decent amount. I know we just said maybe your grades on average are a little bit lower. He's my number one wide receiver in the class. So what's giving you some pause here?
Some pause, not a lot of pause. Like I have him at wide receiver 6, and mostly it's just like a versatility thing. Like I don't know, fast forward to the NFL, like when I watch him, I don't know if he has that like the combination of size and speed to necessarily win on the outside consistently. And that's like it's a small knock. Like I definitely like him. I just kind of worry about his upside. Like he seems like a safe, high floor player, and like maybe a day 2, maybe he'll be higher. Maybe I'm underrating him. I'm kind of viewing him as like a day 2 guy because like I think he's like, he's like 5'11", 180, kind of a shortish wingspan, like doesn't have, like he has good speed, but like for guys like that size, I'd prefer him to be faster. But like with a Jordan Addison comp, I mean, if that's his comp, like that's, that definitely seems promising because it sounds like, Addison's probably going to go in the first round at this point. So I think it's just like not completely sold on his ceiling type thing, but I still like him quite a bit.
I like I said, I'm the highest on him. I really like him. I think the connection that already exists with Malachi Nelson matters. I don't know if that I've actually like physically factored into my grade, but in the back of my mind, I definitely am thinking about that a lot because I think like he throws to him all the time this year. Like his stats are pretty impressive this year for a receiver. So does anybody else factor that in at all when they're thinking about him or not? Not particularly.
I mean, I did a little bit. I think he's a really good route runner to begin with. And one of the things I talk a lot about with Lincoln Riley, it's all what I talk about with him and Ryan Day, to be honest, is those guys are so good at scheming these wide receivers open to begin with. And then you add a guy like Mekhi Lemon, who I think is already a good route runner, can create separation. Then you get Lincoln Riley scheming plays for him to get open. He already has that connection with Nelson, like you said. Like, I think that just means like, and then you add in the Jordan Addison comp there too. Like, I just think the production they're going to have on the field at USC, and he already has that connection, like you mentioned, with Nelson, Riley, like all that put together. I think unless he just goes out there and gets injured, I think you could realistically say he's like a day 2 guy easily going to the NFL, because I think he's got all the tools. And then you have Lincoln Riley there helping him out. Like, it's just, to me, it's a smash situation. If he had gone somewhere else, maybe he drops into my tier 2, but I still have, like, he's right on the cusp of my tier 1. I think I've got him like just graded above that. He is in my tier 1, but I don't, he's good. I think overall, like, I think he does have I think David said he has a safe floor. I do agree with that. Like, I don't think there's a massive ceiling, but I do think he's a very safe floor.
Talk about a guy with maybe a higher ceiling, but we have him in that range, Jonte Cook, who's headed to Texas. He reminded me a lot of Xavier Worthy on first watch, which, he's going to the school that Xavier Worthy's at, which I think is interesting for him. He has some pretty impressive athletic comps here for us. Cook does. Let me pull him up here real quick. Who is Ronnie Jenkins? That's the name?
Oh, this is Cameron Cook.
No, that's Cameron Cook.
It's Cameron.
Yeah,
Cook.
that's Cameron Cook. I didn't do one for.
I didn't do one for Johnson. I was like, I didn't know
no, Cameron Cook was the sleeper running back I wanted to talk about earlier. No, I did not do one for Jonte Cook, but he's very good. I can pull up his athletic comp. Really
that's fine. That's fine. What about Noah Rogers then? A guy that we're a little split on. I don't know who's the hater on Noah Rogers and who's the Noah Rogers stan.
Well, Matt is definitely the hater. I know that. I don't know who has Rogers the highest.
I might.
It would be
David
Alfred.
does.
No, Alfred.
Is it Alfred now?
So Alfred and David both have him graded at a 78. Then both Austin and Matt have him at about 72, and I'm in the middle of you guys. I have him at 74.
All right, well, let's hear Matt and David. That's a little fight here. Joker snaps the pull cue, throws it in there. Let's duke this one out a little bit. Matt, you start first since you're the high guy, and then David, tell him why he's wrong. Or no, sorry, David, you start. You're the high guy, and then Matt, you tell him why he's wrong. Sorry.
Well, first of all, his junior tape. I mean, that's my initial grade on him was off of his junior highlight reel, and I was just honestly on that highlight reel, I was blown away with what he was doing. Like his. He has a good size, but he has like suddenness, and I thought he had good burst, good long speed, pretty good, like relatively good router. Like his hands might be the best in the class, or probably second to like Jacoby Lane, but his hands are incredible. Body control is incredible. He had some amazing punt returns too. So like he has that special teams ability that we always look towards as well. But then like you fast forward to this year, and like they replaced the school he's at Roseville in North Carolina. They replaced their quarterback. His quarterback his junior year actually went to South Florida. I think it was Byron Brown or something like that. He was a 3-star quarterback. So, that's part of the reason he put up these crazy numbers, and his production is like, I'll give you this, like his production has dropped off, but he's still making an insane amount of plays. Like he's averaging nearly 30 yards per reception. Like about half his catches have gone for touchdowns. Like he still has his big play ability. And, I think Matt's going to probably talk about his like he's limited as a route runner. I think he's limited as a route runner, but I think he has the flexibility and like the move. Like I think he's a fluid player. I think he's going to Brian Hartline at Ohio State. They're one of the best programs to develop these types of guys. So I think when you kind of combine all that together, I just can see him. I can see him developing and have a super high ceiling.
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of what David said. His junior highlights are fantastic. Unfortunately, the highlights aren't representing what he is like on a down-to-down basis. I've talked about a lot about him already. I feel like a lot of the viewers probably heard this at this point. But I don't think he's that good of an athlete that we should be propelling him up this high for how unrefined he is. I think he's a relatively one-dimensional player, mostly just a downfield guy, and he's especially proven that this year, which David, this sounded like you had his stats up. Is he over 20 catches yet this season? Is he just over?
I don't have updated ones, but yeah,
it wasn't looking good.
It's not.
He was down significantly on catches this year.
14 for
his quarterback is terrible. Let me say that.
Yeah, but 14 catches through the season so far, and 30 yards per catch, half of them are touchdowns. Because they're just throwing up 40-yard goes to him, and only 14 on the year. Anyway. And when you look at the guys Ohio State has brought in over the past 3 or 4 years that have been successful, Jackson Smith-Njigba, a refined player coming in. Garrett Wilson, refined player coming in. Chris Olave, refined player coming in. Marvin Harrison, refined player coming in. Julian Fleming, not a refined player, and a freak athlete, which Noah Rogers is not. So I just don't know what we're going to be doing here with him. He's not the type of player Ohio State typically goes after. And he's already got these two much more refined players, more highly touted players in the same class as him. Yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts.
I think that pretty much covers the gamut there. I don't know if anyone else has anything different to add.
I mean, I graded based on his highlights like David. Since my grade, I've learned this from big wide receiver guy, and I, he does seem like he potentially, there is that caveat of like, is he a highlight player? And the down to down is more concerning. I mean, Matt Powell's.
Oh, and something I didn't bring up. He's playing bad competition in North Carolina. But they're good for the state. But yeah.
You've watched the whole game. I mean, you've told us like some body language. He's not, really intense on every single play. That's concerning to me. I mean, I think that does translate. I think when you get to the next level, you really have to be intense on every play. Both for your teammates and your coaches to want to reward you and things like that. But anyway, at this moment, yeah, I'm a little more on David's side, but I definitely value Matt's opinion. I think we could be getting trapped by a highlight guy.
Fair enough.
Then I also like, well, I'm gonna err on the side of Brian Hartline and trust Brian Hartline, although they've had some busts like Julian Fleming potentially.
All right, what about Malik Benson, JUCO kid, said in Alabama? He's really highlighting this receiver class for them. They don't have, at least at the moment, a ton of other top guys that they're in on. They're Bama. They'll still get theirs. Bama really, really hurting for wide receivers here. He is the top JUCO wide receiver in the country, and he's been very, very good there at Hutchinson Community College. I mean, I actually I've seen a couple highlights of him, but I haven't sat down and watched Malik Benson. So I feel like I'm not qualified to talk too much about him here. What are your guys' thoughts on him that you have a JUCO kid, rated in the top, 7, 8, 9, 10 players of this class?
Yeah, well, I'll just speak to our decision in general, and I'll throw it to them for a film discussion. But we said, hey, this is weird to have a JUCO guy, like you said, kind of included in the freshman. Usually they're kind of afterthoughts, they're roster fillers, things like that. Malik Benson is potentially real special. And David, I think it was David, did a deep dive, or Moxley maybe did a deep dive article on why he went to JUCO.
It was Moxley.
Okay, Moxley. If you read that article, you can go find it on our website. He has a very unique story that you can kind of understand why he went to JUCO. It's not your traditional grades thing. I don't think it wasn't a traditional late bloomer. It was offense and some other stuff. I think related to his pathway, but he's potentially very special, like Jamison Williams type special for that Bama offense. But what do you guys see specifically, David and Matt?
Matt, you cut up his film recently, so maybe you want to talk about how he looks this year.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much looks the same as he did last year. He's semi a one-dimensional guy as well, as I was just saying with Noah Rogers, but he does this one thing extremely good, which is being an insane fast player. He's a certified track athlete. I think he was a 10.4, 10.3, 100 meter, something very fast, which is what you want to see. And he's just, he's lighting it up and playing at Hutchinson Community College in Kansas. These guys just don't have a chance. He's not, a high volume guy.
Is he the fastest human being to ever walk through Hutchinson, Kansas? Do we think? Do we feel good putting money on that?
I don't know. I'm sure some Olympic athletes pass through there, but yeah, he's up there for sure. And he's not even that small of a guy. I think he's listed 5'11", 180, 190-ish. And he's just kind of that guy that I think Bama envisions probably can be, the Jamison Williams, just because of how explosive and dynamic he is. Will he be. That remains to be seen. He could be the next Tyler Harrell. But it's interesting at least.
All right, I need you guys to help me out with this next one because I literally wrote on the show sheet. I have no idea who the heck this guy is, but you guys have highlighted him, a couple of you guys, as a definite sleeper in this class. On 3 has him at like wide receiver 35. I think 24/7 is just as low. And this is Vandravius Jacobs, I believe is how you say his name here. 6 foot 170. He's committed to Florida State. Florida State's got some fun athletic guys coming in this year. Hakeem Williams, another one. Athletic comp there, Devonta Smith very favorably. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah,
And
if you watch the tape, you can actually kind of see that comp. That's when the David put out there. I actually didn't know that was his athletic comp, so that's actually lining up pretty well. He's currently leading Florida in touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. I think he has 16. The next best like 10 or 12. He was leading in yards, but now he's only down to like 100 or so. But he's playing I don't think it's a relatively average sized school, Vero Beach in Florida. And he's kind of that long, thin outside receiver. He's very explosive. He can go up and get the ball. Well-rounded skill set. He's good after the catch too. So there's just a lot of really interesting traits there. I think I really like his upside going to Florida State. Especially considering how raw Hakeem is. I think Vandrevius is the guy that can kind of come in and produce right away for Florida State.
you feel the same way, David? You think he can play there pretty early?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, pretty good route runner at this stage. He has a really good release too. Like he just flies off the line, and he's a glider. I just love gliders in general. Like Devonta. Surprisingly strong after the catch. For a guy that's 6 foot 170, he definitely appears skinny, but he doesn't play that way at all. Like he's out there breaking tackles. He's killing angles. Like guys just can't get to this guy. It's pretty cool to see. He's just very slick. And I did some I'm always investigating like size and looking at photos and stuff like that. He looks like he has enormous hands. It's just really weird. It does not match like his body. Which is, I've read some stuff like it translates to catching. He does pluck the ball too. So I guess my point is he's got really good hands and really good, catching ability in general. So yeah, I could definitely see him coming in and outproducing Hakeem.
I wonder if it could be like a Tylen Shetron, Stephon Johnson situation where the freak is ranked higher, but not as refined, and the refined receiver is going to come in and be productive immediately, like we've seen at Oklahoma State this year.
Well, I think you guys have ruined campus to Canton leagues because this guy would have been free 3 years ago, and now he's not going to be. So thank you for that. Speaking of guys that would have been free 3 years ago and now they're not, some sleepers that we have at the wide receiver position. We talked about, again, this is a really deep class. Who do we like that's ranked a little bit deeper here, even if we don't necessarily have anything prepped for them? And there's definitely a couple names that we have higher. I mean, Keon Brown being one of them, headed to Oklahoma there, like big athletic, open depth chart. Like there's a lot of things I like there about him. I think we're all pretty much on the same page with Keon Brown at this point.
Yeah. I know a guy, Austin, you and I like, who's pretty low on the services, Caden Lee. You just got him in the program. Very, very sudden athlete. He can run a lot of routes, a lot of kind of double moves and get behind the defense. I think currently, is it Mississippi State? I think I can't remember where he's like lean. Ole Miss, he's leaning. Okay, so that's very interesting too. I mean, decent offense there, Lane Kiffin. So, yeah, kind of that smaller guy who's just a blazer, but very sharp, quick cuts. I think he's pretty promising, and he's buried on 24/7.
Any other names that we like that are deep? I know I have Lions on here that I'll talk about here.
What about your guy Lions?
Yeah. So you can see here, Lions headed to. Well, we don't really know where he's headed yet. Tayshaun Lions. It sounds like it's Notre Dame / Washington seem to be like the two landing spots that are talked about most with him. The athletic comp's really interesting. Cornelius Johnson. He hasn't ended up being a great football player, but really athletic guy coming out of high school. He's at Michigan right now. And I feel like him, how you guys were just kind of talking about Jacobs. Like tall, lankier guy, quick off the line, pretty good release, wins pretty easily, glider. He can get himself open pretty easily. I think he'd be really interesting at Washington, especially if Adunze or McMillan leave there because they don't have a lot of stuff behind him. Like I think he could legitimately step in there day one and be, the third guy and maybe work his way up to something better than that by the end of the year. So Lyons is a guy that I really, really like. Jaron Hamilton, another one. I mean, there's definitely some names in this class that are deep, but they're really good players.
Yeah, I love Lyons too. I actually have him and Jacobs right next to each other. Lyons one spot ahead, just because we actually timed Lyons a very, very fast miles per hour time, above 22 miles per hour. So that's pretty crazy.
I'm patiently waiting to see where he goes. Sorry, like
with no skin in the game, right, David? The Notre Dame fan.
He's leaning one way though.
I don't want him to come to Notre Dame, honestly. Like, well, it's just not a good landing spot at this point, and he just got an offer from Texas A&M. I don't want him to go Texas. I don't want him to go there. And now Miami is like all over this guy. I think he just visited or he's going to, and so that's another rough landing spot. We really need Washington to happen. We just need Washington. And then if he doesn't go there, then I just feel like I have to we'll see where he goes, but I might have to move him down slightly.
And is he from Pacific Northwest?
He's from California. I think Northern California.
Because I feel like he plays a little bit like Troy Franklin too. Like I almost feel like he'd be a natural replacement for Franklin at Oregon, who seems to all of a sudden be a pass happy, fun place to be again. So anywhere but basically any of the places you guys just mentioned would be really, really cool. Please not Miami. Please, dear God, not Texas A&M. Although I guess the coach will let you do whatever you want in the visiting locker room before games there. So that is probably a factor for going there. Like I said, we didn't do tight ends. Go watch Deuce Robinson. Have fun. Kid's really good. Doesn't know where he's going to go yet. I thought he was for sure going to USC, but now it sounds like he's shopping around. So do you guys have any sense of that? He was at Texas recently. I don't have a sense for where he's going to land, but he's the name to watch here.
Yeah, I think he visited Georgia too.
I'm really Georgia needs another.
Stop, Georgia, stop.
They've already got.
I'll throw a name out there for tight ends, and I'm probably going to regret this because you guys all play with me in the program. There's a guy named Andrew Rappelier, Rappleya, that I just recently was looking up. I did not make that name up. It's his real name. He is a really complete tight end. Not the freak 6'6" lanky, guy you can dream on, Kyle Pitts, but he's a little bit more of maybe like Trey McBride, Michael Mayer, although he may have more burst than Mayer. He's lined up in the slot. He's lined up outside. He's also in line blocking on some of his highlights. So he can be a complete tight end. He's going to I don't know about tight end but he's going to Penn State, which is a great place for tight ends. They're gonna work on him athletically. He's going to test well because everyone comes out of Penn State tests well. I'm pretty I haven't done extensive tight end research, but he's easily right up there after Deuce for me. So that's a name for you. Super deep. Don't chase him in the program. He's mine. I just found him.
Yeah, David and I actually do have some tight end grades, and he's our consensus tight end 3. So he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
All right, real quick, guys. We're gonna bring it home here. I just want to ask all of you one player that you seem to differ on the consensus here, the most on, or one of them, one that sticks out in your mind, and just tell us a little bit about him and why we're going to regret the day that we ranked him differently than you. Matt, you want to start first since you're right at the top here?
Yeah, I'll go with Caden Fegan just because all of you have refused to grade him up to this point. I put some respect on this man's name.
I didn't get there yet.
This guy is going to be a super producer in college. He has very high NFL upside just because of his size and athletic ability at this point. I think he should be consensus top 10 RB for everybody.
David?
How high do we have Hakeem as a collection here?
Good question. He dropped a little bit for me, and it's not because he said he wasn't going to Pitt. He's my wide receiver 12 now, I believe.
He's wide receiver 44 overall for us.
Holy
44.
You're right. Are you sure that's not total overall?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. He's player 44 in the class. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I thought he was pretty close to. Anyways, I have him as my wide receiver 22 right now, and That's basically just on his like side athletic profile. Like he's 6'3", 215. He hits 22 miles per hour. I get it. He's an absolute freak show. But I just question, like, I don't love his tape, and he's an old for, so that's like already a red flag in itself. Like he's old for the class, mostly for receivers. I think maybe that's the only position at this point that we know that, and he's just still very raw. So I'm just kind of holding out a little bit. I want to see his senior tape, which I haven't really seen anything. He doesn't really post on Huddle too often, and I haven't really seen. I've seen some stats on him, and they look really, really bad, almost so bad that I can't really believe it. So I want to make sure I can kind of cross verify that with a different website. Maybe 24/7 will post it at some point, or I can dig around on Twitter to see, if he's posting better numbers. But he's a guy that I'm just not sure. I'm not sold on him yet.
Alfred?
This is a guy, good or bad, that will regret.
Yeah, either way. So
Consensus
whichever way you want to
ranking.
go.
I think that I'm just gonna go Nico. Like I think I already explained it. I just think he could be like a no, but like just not make it in college. Like it just like evaporates, and we're just like, what the hell happened to him? So I wouldn't draft. I mean, he's pretty much undraftable for me. My grade reflects that, but like, I would not really feel comfortable rostering him.
You don't, the landing spot isn't attractive enough for you?
No, because
Doesn't do enough?
it's like my take is that I'm not sure he will like make it, like the rigors of big P5 college football, and I'm not sure, like he might not start for Tennessee. I don't know.
Do you think the NIL thing is real? Like the $8 million? Do you think that's
It's real? But like so he'll play. Yeah, I guess that's true. He will play. He will get a chance to get on the field. I don't think it's going to be. But even Harrison Bailey did, and they're not the same guy. But I mean, like highly rated, who just like dissolves into nothing, and we don't even know what happened.
Matt, Bruni?
Can I claim Alfred's guy Avery Johnson, since I'm right higher on him than everybody else? I think he's gonna be.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
I like this. No, go for it.
No, I won't. I'm gonna say, change your grade on Austin Novosad, you coward. No, I don't really have anybody. I don't feel like I'm too far off. I'm apparently the nicest grader out of all of us, so I don't know, like. Cole Cabana, I guess, is one. Like, I'm the only one who has him with a better grade than a 70. Like, I don't think he's that small. I think he's been a really good running back this year. I like what I've seen from him on some of the games that I've had a chance to watch of him this year. I think actually going to Michigan is going to be a good thing for him. I think he has some of the best bursts in this class. He's got really good patience, good hands, really good special teams. Like, I think he's actually going to be really good at Michigan. And not that everybody's super low on him compared to me, but nobody has him in their tier 2, and I think he deserves to be up there. So
I was pleasantly surprised with Cabana. I can see that. He's right just below a 0.7, a 70 for me. But he's an interesting guy.
So I'll toss out mine here real quick. I'm not like that much lower on him, but I don't get the recent rise on Eugene Wilson III. And I'm sorry, Alfred. I feel like every player I pick is a guy that's going to your Gators.
You just hate Napier. You
just hate Billy or Napier. Correct. He's a smaller wide receiver. I don't see like elite athletic ability, and I don't see like anything that special he does on the field. Like, I don't know that his yak ability will necessarily translate to college. I think that he's lacking some flexibility for his size, which I think kind of limits his separation at times. He wins like crossers and stuff. Like, that's basically, they just get him open on it and just let him run. Like, he's not really getting open any other way. I think there's a lot of work to be done there. And I mean, I guess I think I gave low marks. Do you trust that coaching staff to develop him at this stage? I'm not sure that I do. So Eugene Wilson is a guy that I probably won't be drafting any of this upcoming year. I think everyone here has him as like a tier 2 guy. I think I have him the tier below that. So
I will say, as a Florida fan though, I'm skittish on drafting Mizell and Wilson, because I want us to be awesome and explosive and unique and very varied with the way we use our guys, and I don't know. it's an unknown, and I'm a little scared that like it won't be very dynamic of an offense even with these guys coming in. So
Who's playing quarterback for them too? I mean, Richardson, we think he probably goes back. The guy that you guys have, that's the lead 11 guy ever, has been awful.
He's so, and I don't like talking that badly about kids. Like his numbers are objectively horrific. Like he's got more. I think up until last week he had more interceptions than touchdowns, which is in common with our current starter Anthony Richardson. So maybe that's just like Napier's thing.
He is tight. Yeah. All right. So, guys, I know we said at the beginning of this episode that this was going to release Monday. It's actually going to release on Friday here. So, today you're probably watching this. It is live on the website. Go check it out. As we said, there will be, rankings. Athletic Comp Tool will be adding to it over the next couple of weeks here, especially as we work toward finishing the freshman and supplemental guide, which will be available again this year. And we'll all be contributing to that. Matt, David, Alfred, other Matt, thank you guys for hopping on here with us tonight, talk some recruiting. Love having you guys here to really drive all of this kind of content for us, best in the business. So thank you guys for hopping on here tonight and for everything you guys do here. And looking forward to a lot of really long calls talking about all these guys over the next few months as we start to hammer out this good old guide. All right.